Welcome to another Instructor Resource Support in simSchool. Today we'll be discussing what to do to support common user problems, otherwise known as what to do when my candidate says. First, we'll address how to help your student if they say, I don't see my course. Second, we'll look into the reasons that a candidate might say, I finished that module, but you don't see it. And lastly, we'll address how to support your candidate if they say, it says I can't get a report. First, let's log into simSchool. Notice that at the top of the simSchool homepage, there are three buttons: Request a Demo, Register, and Log In. All of your candidates should be clicking on Log In. If they click on Register, what they'll be doing is signing up for a simSchool 14-day trial account. In that trial account, there is no attachment to your university, your course. There's no dashboard for you to see their work. So if a candidate says, I can't see my course, the only way that can happen is if they've registered for a trial account. If they submit a support ticket, we can always help them get logged in at the right location. All of your candidates should be clicking the Login button. Now let's go ahead and log in to a student account. When we log into Max's account and we navigate to his university courses, we see all the modules that are available to him. Now notice when we click on a module that Max has not done any work on at all, when we click on Teaching Sims, we see green buttons that tell us to start teaching. We see gray circles on the left-hand side in the timeline. These are like the gray circles that you as an instructor see on your dashboard when a student has not started working on a module. Now let's look at a module that Max has done some work on. When we click on Module 4 and we click on the Teaching Sims, notice that we see a gray circle. That's a class that he hasn't started teaching yet. And we see a blue star. That blue star is similar to the blue circle on your dashboard that shows you that a student has started working on a module but hasn't completed it yet. Now let's see what it looks like when Max has been doing active teaching in a module. When we come to this module and we look at the Teaching Sims, we can see that Max has completed 5 classes, but he still has one in process. To complete this class, what Max has to do is resume teaching, and we'll give it just a second to load. And when this class starts, what we'll see is any of the time that Max has already spent teaching this particular simulation. And then he'll be able to pick it right back up where he left off. So he doesn't have to reteach. If he's paused, he can always continue right where he was. Now notice when we start this class, we're joining it in session, and Max has only taught for 9 minutes and 12 seconds. Now Max learned in the tutorial materials that he does have to teach each class for 15 minutes to get a full observation report. Let's look at what happens if Max goes ahead and submits this class. simSchool will let him do that because he might just want to look at his data, so that's within his control. Now, when he comes to his observation dashboard, if he clicks on Class 1, notice that the class that he just finished teaching only has 9 minutes. If he comes and clicks on Report, he'll get the message that tells him that he didn't teach for enough time. Often, students will make the mistake of submitting a simulation before they've taught for long enough, and then they're not able to create a report. But luckily for Max, he did teach on other days where he had more than enough time. So notice that if we go into one of those days, click and build the report, notice that all of the green check marks turned into green check marks. Now, if this was a class that did not have reflection questions, that is all Max has to do for it to register as complete on your side, and then you'll see a green check mark on your dashboard. Now, because Max has reflection questions, first he has to turn all of the classes green, which means he has to teach them for long enough, he has to go build an observation report. Then, when he comes to the reflection questions, he'll have an entry field and he can answer each question. Once he answers the question and submits them, then it will be a green check mark on your side. So if a student says to you, I finished the module, but you're not seeing the progress on your side, 9 times out of 10, they've forgotten that they need to consciously go, look at their observations, and that if there are reflection questions, they do need to answer them. But now Max has done all of the steps that he needs to for this class. If he hadn't done that, let's take a look at a class where there are reflection questions, but Max hasn't done all the teaching. You'll notice that in this particular simulation, Max has started, but he has lots of classes that he hasn't taught in yet. And when I look at the reflection questions, I can see the question, but I can't answer them. I do have to teach, look at my observations, and then I can come back and reflect. So if you're not seeing on your dashboard that a student has actually completed the simulation, please remind them they have to teach, they have to observe their data, and then they have to go ahead and submit the module after answering reflection questions if they have them. Now, the next question that a student will often say is they'll say, "It won't let me build a report." Well, remember, the only reason that that will happen is if the student hasn't taught for long enough for simSchool to be able to have enough data to build that report. So just like when we were visiting class 1, Max has taught multiple times, but in one of those times that he only taught for 9 minutes, and that's not long enough. So if he goes to click on that report, it will clearly tell him, you haven't taught for long enough, make sure that you teach longer next time. And Max did. He did teach the next time he taught that sim class, he taught for more than enough time, and he was able to build a report. So those are the 3 most common things that a student might say to you. First, I can't see my course. The only way that that happens is if they haven't logged in with their account to the right location where they're enrolled with your university program. The second most common thing that a student might say is, I finished the module, but you're not seeing it on your side. And remember, if that's the case, the student hasn't completed all the steps necessary to be able to submit this module so that you can actually review it. And the last thing that a student might say is, it won't let me create a report. That only happens if the student hasn't taught for long enough to be able to actually complete that report and have simSchool build it for them. So those are the most common things that you can say to a student if they say to you one of those most common errors that they make. Good luck and enjoy simSchool.